Good evening. My name is Father Greg Waldrop, and I am Rector of the Jesuit community here at Loyola University, also an assistant professor of art history. And we're coming to you this evening from our brand new and state-of-the-art J. Michael Early studio in the Music and Communications building here on, sadly, a fairly lonely campus. We are here to answer some questions, to continue to make contact with our friends, our students, our faculty and staff, and just to keep you up to date about what's going on in our world, because we know that it's important to yours. And so I'm joined by our president, Tania Tetlow. And well, I guess my first question, Tania, is just how are you doing? What's up in the life of the president in the midst of a pandemic?
Well, it's a pretty surreal experience, like for many of you. So it's exciting to get dressed up today and to actually come to campus, which I miss desperately. I am doing the work of endless Zoom calls and running the university in ways we'll talk about, and also helping to homeschool my second grade daughter, Lucy. And so my husband and I are relearning the joys of arithmetic and learning just how stunning second grade teachers are and how much we are in awe of them. But it has been a time of great, as the Jesuits would say, consolation in many ways, of being home with family, but also of incredible disruption and uncertainty. And so I'm just happy to be able to be in touch virtually with so many people. But let me ask you, actually, how are you doing? You live in the Jesuit community. How are our beloved Jesuits doing?
We are, thank God, doing well. Everyone is well. We did have a couple of, not scares exactly, but people who had come into possible contact with others, and so they did quarantine for a while, but now everyone's out of that, and we are basically just hunkered down in our house right across the street from the university. And in a way, it's great because we're all there for community events. You know, we're there for dinner and mass and the social before dinner, so it's been good. And in that way, for us also, a consolation. People have actually mentioned how nice that is. But of course, it is frustrating, especially for the Jesuits as priests, as ministers, who have been eager to get out there in the field and actually try and do some good. And I, as superior, continually try to remind them that by staying home, they are doing a lot of good. Right. So we're doing well. Thanks for asking.
Well, I know that it has been very helpful for a lot of us in the community and for many alums that we can watch your Jesuit Community Mass, which is held live at 10:30 a.m. on Sunday, but you can watch after the fact. So you can find that on our website with Loyola Campus
Loyola
Ministry.
New Orleans University Ministry.
Right.
That's
right.
the site. Yeah.
Yes.
We just wanted to see if we could bring people into our own home during this strange period, and so far it's going well, and I think the community is enjoying it. But let me get to some questions here.
Yes.
That would be of interest to our audience, and these are questions that you have sent in earlier by email or by phone, and then you are also able to send in messages and questions while we're live streaming. So let me ask you the first question, which is really about the Holy Loyola community, faculty, staff, students. What are some things that are happening that, in the midst of all this bad news, what are some things that you are really proud of about Loyola?
I'm proud of so much. Our students have been remarkably resilient. They're very disappointed at what they've lost, particularly the graduating students who've lost those precious last few months of campus life and commencement activities, although we're hoping very much to do commencement as soon as we're allowed to. But they have been resilient, and they are studying and learning and finding connection with each other in remarkable ways, dealing with all the same kinds of issues that the rest of us are, being home with parents and siblings, sometimes small children, of dealing with financial distress of their families, and tight quarters in some circumstances. We've tried to help make sure that for some who don't have internet at home or don't have access to laptops, that we can help them with that. And I want to thank those of you who donated to our Student Hardship Fund. It's been a big help in reaching out to them. The faculty are just obsessed with making sure that our students don't lose this chance in their life, that none of them go off the rails, that we reach out to each and every one of them quite individually and keep them going online, virtually. And so we've had everything from private music lessons taught through video call and attempts to do ensemble orchestra through Zoom, really creative ways that we've managed to move the remarkable teaching that we do online. I know that you're doing that as well. And for the staff to reach out to students in all the ways we do, from coaches to librarians to student affairs, success center, career coaches, all of that, of doing everything that we do and might do in a group more efficiently through very individual reaching out to students. So we have our counseling service is doing counseling of students, and they've had a real uptick in business, as you can imagine, over virtual calls. So people have rallied around. I think for a lot of Loyola, we are, many of us, Katrina trained, and that helped us react very quickly to a crisis. That Loyola's had many ups and downs and difficulties over the years that has made us a tight-knit community, I think really focused on what matters most to mission and to the students, and knowing that we get through hard times and we learn a lot from them. We grow as people. We find ways to refocus our devotion to what matters most to the institution. So there's been a lot to be proud of.
Well, I mean, you're talking about reaching out to people. That's, of course, crucial. And we have to do that. We want to do that to help our students. But obviously, we want to see our students stick it out and come back. So tell us a little bit about student retention. How's that going? And have we lost a lot of students since we've transitioned to online? And what are faculty doing to make sure that students are really learning in this new environment?
We do not yet have signs of losing students, so we are cautiously optimistic. We have not had a lot of transfer requests. What we're worried about are students who often, when we look at our data of who's logging in, because we have that insight into how our students are doing, literally if they're logging into the classes. And some of the students who aren't are the ones who are academically struggling already. So we are very worried about how we make sure that we don't lose students over this, that not only do we not lose them at Loyola, but that they don't sort of lose this big chance in their life to come out with a university degree and to have the trajectory of their life that we know that their talent should bring to them. So we have lots of systems around looking at that computer data, of asking for faculty to tell us when there's a student they can't reach, and of reaching out to students where we have any question about whether they're doing okay. And we've done that with literally, I saw the data today, more than 800 students have gotten personal outreach. Many of them say, oh, I'm totally fine. it's okay. But for some of them, they're dealing with unbelievable hardship, including sometimes their families getting sick with the coronavirus or their families losing jobs. And so this is a moment where taking care of the whole person has never mattered more, and we're doing a lot to try to be there for students. And one of our biggest issues will be that their financial needs have just kind of gone up overnight. So doing everything we can to maximize and prioritize financial aid, which is already what we do as an institution, to be there for them.
Well, that takes care of the students that we have and that we're trying to hang on to lovingly.
Yes.
But what about the next cohort? What about the class of 2024? How has COVID-19 affected our enrollment efforts, and what's the university doing to prepare to ensure that those students are going to have a wonderful Loyola experience?
Well, this is a bit of a pretty big threat to all of higher education right now. When we look at polls of high school seniors who are planning to go to college, in several polls, about 20% of them say they're rethinking that plan, whether they want to delay it or give up on it altogether. And I'm worried that this could end up being almost the GI Bill in reverse, of an overnight decline in the percentage of Americans who go to college. So that would be a huge hit to this country's economy and future and opportunities for a long time to come. So we have reason to worry. I can tell you that in times of economic distress, graduate programs are often more successful as students, coming out of college who don't have the same employment opportunities will go ahead to law school or business school or other programs. And so we are holding very much steady in law school and our other graduate programs. In undergraduate, we were knocking it out of the park through February. We were really ahead of where we were last year. And last year, if you remember, was a great year when we were well ahead of the year before. We have delayed our deadline for admissions from May 1st to June 1st, along with a lot of other institutions. It's the kind thing to do as people grapple with decisions they have to make under far more pressure and without the ability to come tour the campus and engage with us in person in the way that they would. Most of our student body comes from all over the country, and so we are finding ways to virtually reach out to those applicants, and we're finding they're really engaged. The open rate for our emails has skyrocketed. 18-year-olds don't usually communicate by email as much as, which to us was very newfangled email. And we're having video conferences with admissions counselors and students, and often with their parents hovering in the background, calls that last a really long time where they ask really good questions. So we're waiting to see whether what we're experiencing now, we've had a downturn of those deposits, if that's delay, or whether we'll be down in the number of students. And I think all of higher ed is very worried about whether we'll all suffer a decline in students. And that would have pretty big financial implications for us. So we're doing everything we can to bring in those students and to remind people that we are a place of incredible excellence and hands-on institution where this is a really good moment to not be at a school where you're a number. A really good moment to be at a place where you are known as well as you are at Loyola, where we literally find you. You cannot get lost. And so I think students very much care right now about how institutions will treat them, given all the uncertainty going forward. And we're also a very affordable institution because we spend our primary expenditures on financial aid for our students. That is our mission, that's core of who we are. And so we continue to get that word out in all kinds of creative and virtual ways.
Well, a moment ago you mentioned the financial situation of the university,
Yes.
which is obviously directly connected to our enrollment. And it's particularly cruel and disheartening that after all we've gone through and the achievements and the accomplishments that we've been able to do together over the last couple of years, that now we're hit with this new challenge. But
Yes.
How is the financial situation of the university? And what do you think the prospects are? The media is, of course, full of stories about, with these dire predictions about the future of higher ed in this country.
Mm-hmm. We don't know yet, is the honest answer. The losses we suffered this year were a function of, we'd done such a good job of diversifying our revenue by creatively hosting conferences and renting out facilities. We have a lot of filming on Loyola's campus. So we lost revenue because of that, and because we returned residence hall fees to students who had to move out early. But we can weather what happened this fiscal year with that issue. Next year, what we're waiting to see with bated breath is the impact of that retention, of how many of our students make it back, who aren't derailed by this experience, and admissions, and what our numbers will look like there. So we are hoping for the best and preparing for the worst. We will focus everything that we do in these uncertain times and our decisions and hard decisions we may have to make on core mission and on the students, and prioritizing teaching them well, of doing everything right by them. So this is a moment where I think all of my colleagues in higher education are sort of in the same boat. We're waiting to see, and we're preparing to do what we need to do to move forward. I will tell you that we have an endowment of a size that means that we're not threatened in our existence, that this 100-year-old institution is not going anywhere. For a lot of schools that don't have the resources we do, there really are, they're estimating maybe hundreds of them will close. So right now, it's a time to rally the troops of asking of everyone that they help us come together, that we make the sacrifices here we may be called upon to make, and that we continue forward, because we really are at a spot, as you said, you know, we've gone through some hard times, as many of you know, these last few years, where we are building such momentum. There's so much going well. We'd really gotten to a place, thank goodness, where we're back on our feet, or else we'd be in real trouble right now. And it is a shame that we don't get to sort of revel in that victory lap for very long. I think it was a couple of months before this hit. And I used to say to the Loyola community all the time that we just need to not have a hurricane. I forgot to mention we need to not have a pandemic as well. But I also know how strong and resilient this place is, and we'll keep it forward into its next 100 years.
Well, I think you probably know that students have started registering online for classes for next semester. And I'm wondering right now, what else is going on for them? What's going on with the students? I know that they have some decisions to make about things like pass-fail, et cetera.
We decided to do pass-fail optional. A lot of institutions have done that. We want to make sure that for many students dealing with unbelievable disruption that we give that option to them to be fair. It also really mattered to me as the kind of kid who reveled in getting my A's that we have that option available as well for those who've earned it. And our students are continuing to rake in unbelievable prizes to do extraordinary work. So we just found out today that one of our students won one of the most prestigious awards for student journalism, a Hearst Award. Very excited about that. Another one of our students, Basil Syed, is working with his professor, John Seefeld, who's chair of the departments of art and design, to use the 3D printers that we have to make masks and face shields for healthcare workers. We had students and faculty who went through all of our labs and had PPE equipment that they brought to a local hospital system which was desperate for it. So doing a combination of the extraordinary academic work that our students do already and continue to do, and also they're acting very much like Loyola students. So they're standing up and trying to help.
Great. Well, as you know, this is a live stream broadcast. So in addition to the questions that we received ahead of time, we're also getting questions in real time from people who are tuning in. And here's one from an alumnus in Chicago. How is fundraising going with all of the travel restrictions?
Well, I have been doing a lot less of jumping on planes and meeting our top supporters and donors right now, as have our development staff. So it's tough right now, and I think both for that and also because, for so many people, they just do not have the resources they did a month ago. And so in the midst of all these very immediate concerns, we are trying to be gentle and careful about how we ask, but really prioritizing the sort of desperate immediate student needs that we have and how to get that word out there. So we're continuing to have meetings to talk by Zoom and phone call, to check in with our supporters, to communicate to alumni in ways like this as best we can.
Another alumnus from Los Angeles is asking essentially what we're learning from this crisis. So how are we learning to use technology better? Are we thinking already in terms of the future and how this may be at least a part of our new reality, and to be able to use technology more efficiently?
Yes, this has been a crash course for all of us. I will say in the teaching world, because we know always that we have the threat of disruption because of a hurricane evacuation, we had really drilled and prepared to move online if we needed to. And so that we did unbelievably well and overnight. We are learning in ways of how to help students engage with each other, of having really authentic communication that we help facilitate and then get out of their way. And I love the idea of having all of these methods that we're learning now, that we do better to keep in touch with alumni, that we create this virtual community. And I think it's a good moment too for alumni to be more in touch with us. I know that I'm finding myself reaching out to best friends who live all over the world in a way that I wouldn't bother in the throes of daily life. But now we're really focusing on who do I want to hear about, who do I want to connect with. And so we will absolutely double down on this and learn those lessons and do more going forward.
A lot of people are writing in at the moment and asking variations on the same question, which is, what can we do? So what can alumni, our friends, what can they do to help us both financially and in other ways at this time?
Well, I've been thinking about that because I knew that Loyola alumni, being Loyola people, would ask that question, and I can think of a few things. One is that we want to tell your stories as a way to really help prospective students understand who we are and what we do. And the frustrating thing about you all is that you're really modest to a fault. So we need you to tell your stories, particularly those of you who are on the front lines of dealing with the virus in some form or fashion. Please brag to us. We know it's not your style, but tell us what you're doing so that we can brag about you and make clear what it means to have a Jesuit education. We have a program our Alumni Affairs is doing where alumni can volunteer to call older alumni and check in on them and see how they're doing, and I love that. Something you can do safely from home. We have the ability for you to connect to students, current Loyola students who want to do want to do similar careers as you, of ways that you can help mentor current students who now more than ever are really terrified about the job prospects that they face and how to carve a career out of all of this uncertainty right now. And so this would be an even more critical moment for you to be there for our current students. You can please help us bring in those students. So if you know of families, we're late in the admission cycle, who usually have already applied but may be reconsidering their options given all of the changes afoot, please encourage them, explain to them of what a Loyola education has meant in your life and what it can do, and that we really we're proud to make ourselves an affordable option because we are so generous with financial aid. And then of course, we very much welcome and need right now any kind of financial support that you can give us, especially to help our students at this critical time. So those are lots of options of time or treasure, of your expertise, of your talent, and brag about yourselves for once. Tell us your stories.
Well, we know that a Loyola education is unique for a number of reasons, and of course one of those is its close connection to our mission and identity. So a question that we've received is, how do you think Jesuit education is useful, relevant in our current circumstances during this pandemic?
I don't think it's ever been more relevant. The Jesuit presidents love bragging about Dr. Fauci and how has got multiple Jesuit degrees. It is a moment where it reveals an awful lot about people, good and bad, sometimes disappointing, sometimes unbelievably amazing and impressive. And I think that Loyola attracts and helps mold the kind of people who stand up at a moment like this and have courage, whose every instinct is to help others, is to focus on community and the needs of the greater group, and who have not just that desire, but the skills and the ability and the talent and the discipline to make that real, to solve problems, to find a better way. And I hope that as this experience has revealed lots of cracks in our society that existed before, of lots of problems that we need to solve, that we're not going to waste this experience and not have this suffering be for nothing, that we're going to move from here to solving those problems. And so we talk a lot to the students about that, of of making this matter and of going out there and changing the world. No pressure, but that's what we expect of them
Right.
and of all of you.
Yeah, I think to me it's a sense of going back to what Ignatius was all about, and that Jesuit education really grounds us in our transformative truth, right? The truth that motivates us. And so, of course, that's grounded in our faith in God and in the church. But even for those who are not religious people, who have no faith at all, you know, just that motivational, that transformative truth about, like, what do I want the world to look like for my children? You know, that thing that motivates us not just to sit in the ivory tower, but then to go out into the world and to transform it. So
exactly.
So I think that you're absolutely right. The pandemic is our moment.
Yep.
Well, a number of people are also asking about the future. So in the immediate future in terms of our decision making. Speaking of Jesuit qualities,
Right.
Our decision making about the fall.
Right.
So when are we going to pull the trigger on a decision about online, on ground, some kind of hybrid, all of those kinds of decisions?
We are in the thick of planning right now. What is clear to me is that there's no world in which the fall we just go back to what we were doing in January. And so we are planning for two possibilities. One is to be on campus, but with incredible safety measures and increased distance from each other in the classroom, potentially in the residence halls, of thinking through and working with local health experts to design the kinds of cleaning protocols, of social norming campaigns, of how we convince eager 18-year-olds to keep more distance from each other than they would typically, of staggering classes and staff and people so that we have more room. Also with the very likely possibility of having future disruption of maybe needing to go online or not. We very much hope we can be on campus, but if there is no other choice, obviously we would start the fall semester online. We're working backwards to see how late we can make that decision. We want to give everyone as much notice as possible, but of course the only surefire decision would be to go ahead and say we'll go online, and while that would give people notice, it would be a real shame to lose the possibility of being in person. So we are trying to think through every scenario. We will be communicating frequently and soon about what those possibilities look like. And my least favorite emotion in the world is uncertainty, and I'm afraid it's not within my power to answer all those questions and to give the students the certainty that they so crave right now. But what is within our power is to do the kind of planning and work to do everything we can to function as close to normally as we can and to keep our community safe.
Well, it wouldn't be Loyola, New Orleans if we didn't ask about a party. So connected to the fall, let's move back even more close to today. What about commencement?
Right.
What are we going to do to honor these kids, these students who have worked tremendously hard and are, you know, just the pride and joy of their families, many of them first-generation college students.
Right.
They've been robbed of this opportunity in May to walk across the stage. What are we going to do for them?
It is a really tough one. As the day before we went online, a student stopped me in the data center and said, you know, I'm the first in my family to go to college. I have about 25 relatives who need to see me walk across the stage. Please make that happen. So we have announced on May 9th, we will have a virtual celebration. We are not going to do a virtual commencement where we sort of have a roll call of the names, because the feedback we got from students is that would feel very anticlimactic to them. We announced a little while ago that we had an aspirational date in August. I don't know if that will be able to happen then. We are waiting to see what the public health advisories will be, of what the rules will be going forward. What we have decided to do is to have that commencement whenever it can happen on campus, to give ourselves maximum flexibility, to separate it out by colleges so it's not as big as having everyone in the same room in the Superdome as we usually do. And all I know is we will find some way to make it happen, even if it has to be delayed, because it matters so much to students. But that is what's really tricky about this, is that the core of our campus life is about physical proximity. It's about community and bringing ourselves together. And so we are having to navigate this new world where we try to preserve the core of that, to create that in as best we can without being able to literally do it. So it's a surreal situation.
Indeed, indeed. Well, we're coming up to the end of our time, and I just wonder if you had any final thoughts to wrap us up.
I just want to tell the alumni that you stop me all the time, and when I get to see you physically in person, which I'm looking forward to again, and talk to me about what Loyola meant to you, to your life, of how it transformed who you are. And I want you to know that the students that we have today are just stunning. They make you so proud. They are living up to the high bars that you set, and they love hearing about your stories and what you've achieved with your education, of how you've mattered to the world in big, amazing ways, in all kinds of quiet ways, in the integrity with which you live your daily lives. And so I want to thank you for making us proud of proving to the world what a Loyola New Orleans Jesuit education means, of your support of this place in everything that you do, of talking us up, of being there for us, of donating your time or your resources to us. It is what makes rooms like this possible. It is what has paid forward so many scholarship opportunities for students. But most of all, of just reminding us of why we do what we do. And so know that Loyola will get through this, as we have so many hurdles over the last 112 plus years. And we'll do it because of you and with your help, and because this is the tight-knit community that you have always loved so much. So thank you for being here virtually, and I can't wait to see you all in person.
Well, thank you, Madam President,
Yeah.
and we thank you for your continuing efforts, not only day in and day out on behalf of the university, but these opportunities that we have to hear from you. You're doing a great job, I think, communicating to all the various constituencies at Loyola, and that's so important. So thank you very much for joining us this evening from Loyola's campus, and we, of course, wish you all the best, God's blessings, keep well, keep safe, good night.